It's a beautiful Saturday. Birds are singing, sprinklers are sprinkling their rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack across overly green lawns, and I'm about to become a local legend, a cautionary tale, or possibly an inmate, all because of Brenda Clump and a piece of laminated paper that, if I'm being brutally honest with myself, I probably spent too much time designing on a free Canva template. Michael, a voice like nails on a chalkboard mixed with the disapproving sigh of a Victorian governess cuts through the suburban bliss. I plaster on a smile that feels like it might crack my face. Brenda, fancy meeting you here, on the public sidewalk, where people walk their dogs. Buster, my golden retriever service dog, and the furry, four-legged center of my universe, thumps his tail against my leg. He's a good boy. Too good for this neighborhood, frankly. Brenda Clump, president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association, her blonde helmet hair seemingly impervious to wind, narrows her eyes at Buster. Specifically, at the laminated permit dangling from his very official-looking service vest, which, okay, I also designed with some reflective tape from the hardware store. That animal, she begins. And I already know this isn't going to be a friendly chat about the weather. Is that an official service dog permit I see? I try for breezy. Brenda, we tango this tune every week, don't we? Yes, Buster here is my highly trained, exceptionally well-behaved service dog. And yes, that's his permit, see? It's got a little paw print stamp, very official. My internal monologue pipes up, a little too loudly for comfort. Okay, so the paw print stamp might have come from a kid's craft set I found at a yard sale, but the sentiment is there. It's the spirit of the law, Brenda, not the letter. Before I can even articulate that rather flimsy defense, her hand, topped with perfectly manicured but alarmingly pointy red nails, darts out like a viper striking a field mouse. She snatches the permit. Buster lets out a soft whine, more confused than alarmed. This looks suspiciously like a novelty item, Michael, Brenda declares, holding the laminated card between two fingers as if it's contaminated. HOA Bylaw 7, subsection Q, paragraph 3, clearly states all service animal documentation must be verified by the board. I'm confiscating this for review. My jaw, I think, actually drops. Confiscating? Brenda, you can't just... That's like a federal document. Potentially, probably give it back. My voice is rising, and a curtain twitches in Mrs. Henderson's window across the street. Excellent. An audience. It will be returned pending board approval. Brenda sniffs, tucking the permit into the pocket of her sensible beige blazer. Which convenes next Arbor Day. Good day, Michael. And with that, she executes a perfect pivot and power walks away, leaving me standing there, sputtering, with a bewildered dog and a rapidly forming plan of utterly disproportionate retribution. Buster nudges my hand, his big brown eyes asking the eternal canine question. Treats? Or is the scary lady gone? She did not just do that, did she, boy? I murmur, my mind already racing. My therapist, bless her well-meaning soul, told me to count to 10 when I feel my anger spiking. Okay, 1, 2, skip a few, 9, 10, right? That was about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. Time for Plan B, or possibly Plan Z, because this isn't just about a permit anymore. This is about justice. This is about freedom. This is about the fact that Brenda Clump once reported me for having wind chimes that were, and I quote, excessively melodic. My blood pressure is doing the Macarena. My therapist also said to use my words. Okay, here are some words. Brenda Clump is a menace to society and laminated paper everywhere. Internal monologue. She wants official? Oh, I'll give her official. She wants board approval? She's about to meet the board of Don't Mess with Mikey and his dog productions. And this time there will be aerial support. I practically sprint back to my slightly less than meticulously kept house. Buster trotting happily beside me, blissfully unaware he's about to become a key player in a suburban skirmish of epic proportions. The front door slams behind me, and I'm already dialing. "Dave, code Poodle!" I bark into the phone, pacing the length of my living room, which is currently decorated in a style I like to call early 21st century filmmaker chic, meaning piles of scripts, camera equipment, and an alarming number of empty coffee mugs. "Code Poodle? Mikey, what are you talking about? Did Mrs. Higgins' miniature poodle escape again and get stuck up the oak tree?" Dave's voice is tinny, probably because he's tinkering with something greasy, as usual. "No, not an actual poodle, though that gives me an idea for my next film." Anyway, remember that time I had to explain to your incredibly patient wife why you were dressed as a giant, surprisingly agile squirrel in my backyard for that indie short about existential angst in the rodent community? A long sigh from Dave's end. "Vaguely. It involved a lot of nuts and a philosophical debate with a garden gnome, right? My therapy bills from that month were impressive. The point is, you owe me. I need the chopper, and your most official-looking flight suit." "No, Dave. Not the one with the suspicious oil stain shaped like Italy. The clean one." "The chopper?" "Mikey, the Albatross is barely cleared for sightseeing tours over the less populated parts of the county. What kind of trouble are you brewing now? And does it involve heights? Because you know I get vertigo if I stand on a particularly thick rug." "Minor details, Dave. Just get to the airfield. And bring duct tape. Lots of it. Trust me." I hang up before he can protest further and immediately dial my crew. My loyal, long-suffering, and thankfully, usually available crew. "Leo, Maria, Jax, drop whatever you're doing. Unless it's something that pays actual money, then maybe finish that first, but hurry. It's an emergency, a creative emergency. Operation Golden Retribution is a go." "Golden Retribution?" Leo's voice is deadpan. He's my cameraman, a man whose cynicism is only matched by his ability to get a perfect shot, even when hanging upside down from a tree, which has happened more than once on my sets. "Does this involve glitter again, Mikey? Because I'm still finding it in places glitter should never, ever be." "No glitter, Leo, I promise. This is serious, semi-serious, hilariously serious. Meet me at Dave's airfield in 30. Wear black, or something that looks vaguely authoritative." "Jax," I switch to a more commanding tone for my enthusiastic but sometimes a few fries short of Happy Meal actor friend. If you still have that plastic police badge from Detective Chihuahua, bring it, and the little hat." "Ooh, are we playing cops and robbers, Mikey?" Jax sounds way too excited. "Something like that, Jax. Something exactly like that." I hang up, a grin spreading across my face. "Brenda Clump, you have awakened a sleeping giant. A slightly neurotic, overly dramatic, but fiercely protective giant with a service dog and access to a helicopter. This is going to be cinematic." 30 minutes later, I'm at Dave's dusty little airfield, which is really just a glorified patch of dirt with a windsock that's seen better days. The Albatross, Dave's prized Bell 47 helicopter, sits there looking like a museum piece that escaped and is now considering a life of minor crime. It's a classic, sure, but it also has more patches than a Boy Scout sash. Dave is leaning against it, arms crossed, looking deeply skeptical. He's wearing a faded blue flight suit that might have been official in about 1978. "A K-9 police chopper, Mikey? Seriously? This thing barely passed its last inspection for mostly airworthy. And Buster threw up in it last time we tried to take him for a joyride, remember? The blueberry muffin incident of 23? I'm still finding fossilized muffin chunks in the crevices." "Details, Dave, details," I say, clapping him on the shoulder with more confidence than I feel. "It's about the illusion of a K-9 police chopper. We just need the noise, the wind, the sheer, unadulterated audacity. Think of it as an immersive theatrical experience for one very deserving HOA president. And don't worry about Buster. Maria's bringing extra-strength ginger chews and a tactical barf bag. I should probably confess here, Dave owed me. Big time. Ever since I'd heroically, and with much physical comedy involving a misplaced rake, talked him out of investing his entire life savings in that artisanal toast food truck concept. I'd tried to explain, Dave, my friend, it's just burnt bread with avocado. You can't build an empire on that. He didn't listen. The Albatross was pretty much all he had left after Toast Malone's gourmet crumb emporium went, well, belly up in a spectacular blaze of unpaid vendor invoices and very stale sourdough. So yeah, he was kind of obligated to enable my occasional lapses in judgment. Leo pulls up in his beat-up station wagon, already fiddling with his GoPro. Maria is next, wrestling a large duffel bag that looks suspiciously like it contains more than just sound equipment. Jax bounces out of her passenger seat, already wearing the tiny, slightly squashed police hat from Detective Chihuahua. He salutes me. Badly. "All right, team," I announce, striking what I hope is a commanding pose. "Leo, your air tactical surveillance. Get some dramatic sweeping shots of us approaching the target zone. We need this to look like the opening scene of a Michael Bay movie, but, you know, on a budget that wouldn't cover his craft services for an hour." Leo just grunts and starts attaching the GoPro to the Albatross's already battered dashboard. "Maria," I continue, turning to my ever-resourceful sound tech and props master. "Your K9 ground support and lead prop stylist. That K9 unit vest you made for Buster out of an old neoprene life jacket and some strategically placed Velcro is pure genius. Did you manage the aviator sunglasses?" Maria grins, pulling out a pair of child-sized aviators. "Custom fitted. He looks surprisingly professional. And the duct tape K9 lettering on the vest really pops." Buster, who's been patiently sniffing a tumbleweed, wags his tail when he sees Maria. He knows she's the keeper of the good treats. "Perfect," I exclaim. "Now, Jax." I turn to my eager beaver actor. "You are Officer Rex. No, wait, two on the nose with Buster here. Officer Danger. No, that's Dave's unfortunate amateur DJ name from college. Officer Hardcase." "Yeah, I like that. Officer Hardcase. You're my ground unit. Your mission is to look intimidating, ask vaguely threatening questions, and generally support my narrative of official business." Jax puffs out his chest, the tiny hat wobbling precariously. "Do I get a weapon, Chief?" I reach into my bag and pull out a brightly colored squeaky toy shaped like a donut. "You get this very official-looking K9 distraction protocol device. If Buster gets too antsy, or if Brenda tries to deploy her own secret weapon, like that terrifyingly sharp letter opener she keeps on her porch table, you squeak this, subtly." Jax takes the donut with grave seriousness. "Understood, Chief. Subtly squeaking. Got it." Leo, having finished his GoPro setup, wanders over, looking unimpressed. "Are we getting hazard pay for this, Mikey? Because my insurance specifically has a clause about a death by enraged HOA president during unauthorized aerial maneuvers." I checked. "Think of the exposure, Leo," I say, trying to channel my inner motivational speaker. "This is going viral. Filmmaker takes on HOA tyranny with a helicopter and a dog and sunglasses. We'll get a Netflix deal out of this, I swear, or at the very least a cease and desist letter that will look great framed in my office." My internal monologue chimes in helpfully. "Or a restraining order. Definitely a 50-50 shot here." Dave sighs again, a sound that speaks of years of enabling my harebrained schemes. All right. Let's get this circus airborne before I change my mind, or the FAA shows up asking about my experimental agricultural dusting techniques, which is my usual cover story for your nonsense, Mikey." With a series of coughs, sputters, and a noise that sounds suspiciously like a large badger caught in a washing machine, the Albatross's rotors begin to turn. It's loud. Gloriously, ridiculously loud. Dave, looking like a man resigned to his fate, settles into the pilot seat. I strap myself into the co-pilot seat, cheap walkie-talkie clutched in my hand like a talisman of questionable authority. Buster, kitted out in his K9 vest and aviators, is surprisingly calm in the back, nestled between Maria and Jax, looking like a K9 action hero on his way to a very important mission. Or maybe he's just enjoying the vibrations. It's hard to tell with dogs. Air 1 to ground control, I say into the walkie-talkie, trying for a deep, official-sounding voice that probably just makes me sound like I have a cold. Which is also me right now, because I'm the only one with a walkie-talkie that isn't a squeaky donut. But play along, Jax. We are en route to the Clump residence. Prepare for community bewilderment and possible light property damage from rotor wash. Apologies in advance, Henderson. We lift off, the albatross groaning in protest, but gamely ascending. We fly low, well, as low as Dave dares, without actually trimming Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning rose bushes, over the neat, identical houses of Oakwood Estates. Curtains twitch. A kid on a tricycle stares up, mouth agape, then promptly topples over in astonishment. I see Mr. Abernathy, who's usually meticulously washing his oversized SUV at this time, just freeze, hosepipe forgotten, as a torrent of water cascades onto his driveway. This is already better than I imagined. Mikey? Jax's nervous voice crackles over the cheap headset Dave provided. Are we absolutely 100% sure this isn't, a major federal offense? Impersonating something official involving dogs and air travel? Relax, Jax! I shout over the roar of the engine. It's not impersonation. It's performance art, with a strong K9 element and a helicopter. Totally different legal category, I'm pretty sure. Probably. The landing is memorable. Dave, to his credit, manages to set the albatross down on the HOA community's surprisingly well-manicured green space. A patch of grass usually reserved for tasteful seasonal decorations and the occasional illicit game of frisbee golf by rebellious teens. It's a safe enough distance from Brenda's house to avoid an actual disaster, but definitely close enough for maximum psychological impact. Leaves, twigs, and what looks suspiciously like Mr. Henderson's lost toupee from last year's unfortunate windstorm are kicked up in a chaotic vortex. Mikey, Jax, and Buster, on his leash, looking remarkably stoic despite the undignified descent, disembark with as much tactical precision as we can muster, which isn't much. Maria, ever the professional, immediately gets to work securing the perimeter with a roll of bright yellow caution tape she'd pre-printed with the words, "Official K9 business in progress. Do not cross or offer unrequested gardening advice." My internal monologue is having a field day. Okay, maybe the custom-printed tape is a bit much, but you have to admire her commitment to the bit. Maria really gets into character. She's probably already storyboarding the making-of documentary in her head. Confused neighbors, drawn by the unholy racket of the albatross's arrival, start to gather at what they deem a safe distance. Phones already out and recording. I spot old Mr. Henderson, walking his yappy white poodle, Peppermint. Peppermint is losing his tiny mind, barking hysterically at the helicopter. Mr. Henderson just looks like he's witnessed the beginning of an alien invasion. Is that a police dog?" he quavers to his equally bewildered wife. "Getting out of a heavily discounted tourist helicopter?" "Showtime," I mutter to Jax, adjusting my own dollar store aviator sunglasses. Buster, sensing the shift in energy, lets out a small, anticipatory woof. We begin our tactical advance across the pristine lawn towards Brenda Clump's meticulously kept front yard. It's a two-house walk, the longest, most dramatic two-house walk of my life. Leo, My cynical cameraman is filming from a discreet-ish position behind a suspiciously large ornamental shrubbery, probably muttering about focal lengths and impending lawsuits. "Ground unit approaching target," I speak into the walkie-talkie, mainly for the benefit of the growing crowd of onlookers and their camera phones. Subject Clump is known to be armed with a sharp tongue and an encyclopedic knowledge of approved hedge height regulations. Proceed with extreme caution. And Jax, for the love of all that is holy, try not to let Buster pee on her prize-winning azaleas. That's a battle I'm not equipped to fight today. As if on cue, Brenda Clump storms out of her front door, her own phone already recording, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated suburban outrage. It's a glorious sight. "Michael!" she screeches, her voice somehow cutting through the fading whine of the Albatross's engine. What in the Sam Hill, the actual blue blazes, is the meaning of this? This is a private residential zone. You have a helicopter parked on the Petunia patch, my award-winning, committee-judged, internationally recognized petunias. Jax, stepping forward as Officer Hardcase, puffs out his chest. He tries for a deep, authoritative voice, but it comes out more like a confused baritone frog. "Ma'am, we are conducting an official investigation into the alleged theft of a registered, federally recognized, and extremely important service animal permit. We have reason to believe the aforementioned evidence is currently located on these premises." Brenda's eyes bulge. "Theft? I am the president of this homeowners association. I uphold the sacred bylaws. That flimsy piece of laminated nonsense you call a permit was clearly a fabrication. Probably printed off the internet from a website called https://www.google.com/search?Q=fakedogpermitsforidiots.com. "Fabrication, Brenda?" I counter, stepping forward, trying to look as imposing as a man who regularly uses his dog as an excuse to get out of social engagements can look. Or a testament to my superior laminating skills and dedication to clear, legible canine identification. Now, about that permit. And while we're at it, I believe you're also in flagrant violation of HOA Bylaw 12, subsection D, paragraph 2. Excessive smugness displayed within a residential area. My internal monologue gives me a high five. Okay, I definitely just made that last one up on the spot, but it should be a rule. I'll propose it at the next HOA meeting, if I'm not in jail. Buster, perhaps sensing the escalating tension, or maybe just bored with the lack of squirrels in Brenda's yard, lets out a soft, dignified woof. Brenda whirls on him. "Is that dog barking at me? That's a noise violation. Bylaw 4, subsection A, unwarranted canine vocalizations." The argument, if you can call it that, it's more like a theatrical production of two irrationally angry people and a confused dog, escalates with the speed of a runaway golf cart. It's a beautiful symphony of suburban absurdity. Brenda is brandishing her HOA rulebook like a medieval weapon, quoting obscure bylaws about acceptable lawn gnome heights and the proper disposal of fallen autumn leaves. I'm countering with dramatic pronouncements about justice, canine rights, and the unconstitutionality of unauthorized permit confiscation. Jax, as Officer Hardcase, is trying to look tough and interject with phrases like, "Ma'am, please remain calm," and "We're just trying to do our job, ma'am." But he's visibly intimidated by Brenda's sheer unadulterated fury. He also keeps nervously squeaking the donut toy. Buster, bless his furry heart, has decided that Brenda's prize-winning cherubic garden gnome looks like it needs a friend, and is attempting to gently nudge it off its pedestal with his nose. "Brenda," I say, trying for a reasonable tone that I'm nowhere near feeling. We can do this the easy way, or the slightly more convoluted, aviation-involved, and increasingly public way. Just hand over the laminated declaration of Buster's inherent awesomeness and right to accompany me wherever I darn well please. "I will do no such thing," Brenda retorts, her voice reaching a pitch that I'm fairly certain is shattering windows in the next county. "This is an outrage, a travesty. I am calling the actual authorities, the real police, not this airborne circus troupe of yours." And just as she says real police, as if summoned by the sheer power of her indignation, we hear them. Sirens. Real, honest-to-goodness, not part of my script sirens. They're getting closer, fast. 2 gleaming police cruisers, lights flashing, pull up to the curb with impressive speed, effectively blocking in the albatross and my rapidly dwindling sense of composure. Officers Miller, tall, looking like he's seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. And Rodriguez, shorter, younger, and with a distinct twinkle in his eye that suggests he might actually be enjoying this, get out. Officer Miller surveys the scene. The slightly battered helicopter parked on the community green, the dog in sunglasses looking like a furry movie star, Jax clutching a squeaky donut and trying to hide behind me, Maria attempting to casually roll up her official K9 business tape, Brenda looking like she's about to spontaneously combust, and me, Mikey, director of this chaotic masterpiece, mid-oration about the sanctity of laminated documents. He takes a long, slow breath. "All right, folks," he says, his voice calm but carrying the unmistakable weight of authority that hasn't had its morning coffee yet. "What in the—" He pauses, his gaze lingering on Buster's aviators for a beat too long. "What is going on here? Dispatch said something about a miniature air invasion, a possibly rabid squirrel, and a stolen dog license. Sounded like a prank call, but apparently you people are committed to the bit." My internal monologue screams, "Ah, the actual authorities. This could be a slight, unforeseen complication in my otherwise flawlessly executed plan. Or, the part where I go to jail. With Jax. And possibly Buster as an accessory before, during, and after the fact. Officer Miller and Officer Rodriguez, to their everlasting credit, listen with a degree of patience that I'm fairly certain should qualify them for sainthood, or at least a hefty bonus. Brenda and I, of course, try to explain our respective sides of this monumental misunderstanding simultaneously, resulting in a cacophony of, "He flew a helicopter," and "She stole my permit," and "Bylaw infringement," and "Canine civil rights." Officer Rodriguez finally holds up a hand. Okay, one at a time, ma'am," he says to Brenda. "You first, briefly." Brenda launches into a tirade about property values, unauthorized aerial vehicles, the emotional distress caused to her prize-winning petunias, and the general menace that is me and my so-called service animal. Then it's my turn. "Officer," I begin, trying for a tone of calm rationality that is utterly failing me. "It's quite simple. This esteemed HOA president," I gesture towards Brenda, who glares daggers at me, "did unlawfully confiscate official documentation pertaining to my registered service animal, Buster here." I pat Buster, who thumps his tail and offers Officer Rodriguez a hopeful, doggy grin. Officer Rodriguez actually grins back. "He seems like a good boy. Nice sunglasses." "He has a sensitive public image to maintain," I explain gravely. "And the permit she took, while admittedly enhanced for durability and aesthetic appeal with my own laminator, was a representation of his legal status." Officer Miller pinches the bridge of his nose. "So let me get this straight, Mr. Michael, but my friends call me Mikey. Or hey, you with the helicopter. As of about 10 minutes ago." "Mr. Michael," Officer Miller continues, ignoring my attempt at levity, You flew a helicopter here into a residential cul-de-sac, piloted by him. He gestures at Dave, who is trying to look as inconspicuous as a man standing next to a bright yellow helicopter can, which is to say, not very. Because she took your artisanal dog permit? It's the principle of the thing, officer, I exclaim, perhaps a little too loudly. And the lamination was top-notch. Besides, I lower my voice conspiratorially, Buster has legitimate needs. He helps with my, situational anxiety. Especially situations involving overzealous HOA presidents with a vendetta against wind chimes. This is the point where I probably should have led with the actual doctor-verified, digitally stored proof of Buster's service animal status. But in the heat of the moment, fueled by righteous indignation and the thrill of aerial choreography, it had slipped my mind. I fumble for my phone. Hang on, I have the official PDF from his doctor right here. It's on my cloud storage. Somewhere. Just give me a second to find the Wi-Fi password for the Hendersons' open network. Brenda scoffs. A likely story. He's probably trying to Photoshop something as we speak. Booster, meanwhile, has decided Officer Rodriguez is his new best friend and is leaning heavily against his leg, soliciting more ear scratches. Rodriguez obliges, a small smile playing on his lips. He's a very persuasive young man, this Buster, Rodriguez comments. Just then, a new development. Officer Rodriguez squints at Dave, who is now actively trying to merge with the side of the Albatross. Hey, wait a minute. Aren't you Dangerous Dave Dangerfield from that public access cable show, Sky High Shenanigans? Dave groans, a sound of pure agony. It was Chopper Views and Use, officer, he mutters, defeated. And it was critically acclaimed by my mom and Aunt Carol. We had dozens of viewers, dozens. My crew, sensing an opportunity to contribute, or perhaps just to deflect attention from their own questionable involvement, decides to offer eyewitness accounts. Officer, I saw the whole thing, Jax pipes up, stepping forward, his tiny police hat askew. Brenda Clump was acting very suspiciously around a squirrel earlier, possibly conspiring. The squirrel looked shifty. Maria nods sagely. The lighting conditions were suboptimal for a clean audio recording of the initial permit confiscation, but the aggressive body language was evident. Textbook microaggressions. Leo, ever the pragmatist, just shrugs. I have it all on a 4K GoPro if you want to see the dailies. The wide shot of the helicopter landing is actually pretty epic, not gonna lie. Officer Miller looks like his headache is rapidly approaching migraine status. Right, he says slowly. A shifty squirrel, microaggressions, and dailies. This just gets better and better. I finally find the PDF on my phone and present it to Officer Miller with a triumphant flourish. Aha! Proof! Buster is indeed a bona fide, medically sanctioned, and all-around fantastic service animal. Officer Miller examines the phone screen. He sighs. Well, Mr. Michael, this does appear to be legitimate. Ma'am, he turns to Brenda, the dog is a registered service animal. You probably shouldn't have taken his creatively produced permit. Brenda looks like she's swallowed a particularly sour lemon. But before she can unleash another volley of bylaws, Officer Miller, whose gaze has been idly sweeping Brenda's immaculate yard, suddenly stops. He frowns. He walks over to her prize-winning bed of vibrant pink petunias. He crouches. And then, to everyone's utter astonishment, he pulls a small, retractable tape measure from his utility belt. Ma'am, he says, his voice tinged with a strange new note of official interest. While we're on the subject of rules and regulations, I happen to be a bit of a gardening enthusiast myself, and I believe HOA Bylaw 14, subsection C, paragraph 8, clearly states, All decorative floral arrangements, specifically petunias of the grandiflora varietal, must not exceed a height of 12 inches from the designated soil level. Yours, Mrs. Clump, he squints at the tape measure, appear to be, yup, a solid 13.5 inches. That's a clear violation, ma'am. A full 1.5 inches over regulation. Brenda Clump's jaw drops. Her face cycles through a fascinating range of colors, from enraged crimson to aghast white to a sort of bilious, petunia-betrayed green. My petunias? But they won the Regional Floral Excellence Award. The judges praised their exuberant verticality. I can't help it. I whisper to Jax, 13.5 inches. The sheer audacity, the flagrant disregard for horticultural law. Jax nods solemnly, clearly impressed by this new, exciting legal frontier. Officer Rodriguez is visibly trying, and failing, not to laugh. The denouement of Operation Golden Retribution was, if I'm honest, a little less action-packed than its opening scenes, but no less satisfying in its own quiet, bureaucratic-esque way. Brenda Clump, sputtering about the injustice of it all and the clear conspiracy against her award-winning flora, received an official HOA warning for her defiantly oversized petunias. It was a beautiful moment. She did, however, reluctantly, and with very poor grace, hand back my crumpled, homemade, but now vindicated service dog permit. I smoothed it out lovingly. It had been through a lot. As for me and my merry band of miscreants, Dave, Leo, Maria, and Jax, we got a stern, albeit slightly amused lecture from Officers Miller and Rodriguez. It covered a range of topics, including the misuse of aviation equipment within city limits, the finer points of disturbing the peace, the subtle art of not impersonating law enforcement, even with a squeaky donut, and generally, and I quote Officer Miller here, creating a public spectacle the likes of which this quiet cul-de-sac has never seen, and hopefully, with the grace of God and some common sense, never will again. No arrests were made. I suspect this was primarily because the sheer volume of paperwork involved in documenting our escapade would have caused the station's ancient computer system to achieve sentience and then immediately resign in protest. Also, Officer Rodriguez was still intermittently petting Buster, who had, by this point, decided that police officers were excellent sources of both ear scratches and dropped donut crumbs. Jax had gotten nervous again. "Mr. Michael," Officer Miller said, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all the strange calls he'd ever responded to, "please, I implore you, channel your creative energies into actual films, not airborne permit disputes that give half the neighborhood palpitations." "Understood, officer," I said solemnly. "But you have to admit the production value was pretty good for an indie budget. The helicopter entrance, pure cinematic poetry." Officer Rodriguez, handing me back my phone, discreetly slipped me a card. "If you ever need actual animal control or have a legitimate, non-helicopter requiring issue, call this number. Not that." He gestured vaguely towards the albatross, which was now being eyed suspiciously by a flock of pigeons, probably discussing its territorial claims, so we didn't exactly get off scot-free. The HOA, in a rare display of unified action that probably involved Brenda Clump making a lot of very loud phone calls, sentenced us, me, Dave, Leo, Maria, and Jax to community beautification duty. Which, in practice, meant we had to spend the following Saturday helping Brenda trim her prize-winning, but illegally tall, petunias down to the regulation 12 inches. Under her steely, unforgiving gaze. Buster supervised, of course, offering moral support from a shady spot under a rose bush, and occasionally trying to retrieve the pruning shears, which he seemed to think were a new type of fetch toy. It was awkward. It was humbling. It was also, if I'm honest, a little bit hilarious, especially when Jax accidentally snipped Brenda's prize-winning garden hose. My standing in the Oakwood Estates neighborhood is, let's call it, complex. Some folks cross the street when they see me coming, muttering about property values and noise pollution. Others give me a subtle thumbs up and ask when the sequel to The Helicopter Incident is coming out. Mrs. Henderson even baked me a pie, a sorry your Saturday was so weird apple crumble. Brenda Klump now communicates with me exclusively through certified mail, delivered by a very wary-looking postman, even if I'm just asking if she's seen my runaway recycling bin. Later that week, we were all crammed into my living room, reviewing Leo's footage. And it was, as he'd predicted, gold. "This is amazing, Mikey," Leo said, for once looking almost impressed. Pure, unadulterated, certifiably insane gold. The shot where Buster nearly steals Brenda's garden gnome during the standoff, Oscar-worthy. The dramatic zoom on Dave's face when Rodriguez recognized him from public access TV? Priceless. Maria was already sketching on a notepad. "I've already designed the movie poster. HOA busters. They came, they saw, they landed a chopper on the common green. Tagline, their bylaws are rough." Jax, bless his cotton socks, was practically bouncing. "Do I get an action figure, Mikey? Officer Hardcase with squeaky donut action and a tiny detachable police hat?" "We're definitely submitting this to Sundance," I announced, pouring everyone another glass of cheap celebratory wine. Under experimental documentary comedy thriller featuring an exceptional canine performance. It's a niche category, but I think we've got a real shot. A few days later, I'm walking Buster through the neighborhood. It's peaceful. Almost suspiciously peaceful. No sign of Brenda. No HOA notices fluttering under windshield wipers. Just the gentle thwack-thwack of sprinklers and the distant hum of a lawnmower. Okay, looking back, I think, as Buster sniffs intently at a particularly interesting lamppost. Was the K9 police chopper overkill? Maybe, just a smidge. Did I need to deploy a tactical unit of my slightly bewildered film crew, armed with a squeaky donut and custom caution tape, to retrieve a homemade permit I'd forgotten I had a perfectly good digital backup for? Probably not. There were, perhaps, less aviation-centric solutions available. But here's the thing. Brenda Klump hasn't mentioned a single bylaw, infraction, or unapproved garden ornament to me all week. Not one. And Buster, he's become a local celebrity. Kids stop to ask if they can pet the helicopter dog. He even got a fan letter addressed to Sergeant Buster Cuddles, K9 Aviation Unit, Oakwood Estates. It contained a slightly chewed-up milk bone and a drawing of him flying the albatross. So yeah, maybe it was a little nuts. Maybe I have a minor problem with authority figures named Brenda who have an unhealthy obsession with rules. But sometimes you just gotta make a stand. Or, a highly choreographed, incredibly loud aviation-assisted comedic intervention that leaves half the neighborhood questioning your sanity, but secretly impressed by your audacity. Buster looks up at a passing flock of geese, a curious, almost thoughtful glint in his big brown eyes. I pat his head. "No, boy," I say softly. "They don't need permits, pretty sure. But if they start their own HOA and try to regulate honking patterns, all bets are off. We might need to borrow Dave's spare blimp for that one." My internal monologue, never one to miss an opportunity, chimes in. Now about that rabid badger rescuers of the Rogue Valley script I promised Dave I'd write. I wonder if the albatross can handle night vision and a tranquilizer dart gun attachment. Yeah, some days it's good to be Mikey, especially when you have a dog like Buster, and friends who are just crazy enough to say yes.